the economy crashes, when the country goes to total hell, and everything is a disaster. You know, you have riots to go back to where we used to be when we were great.
When you guys put somebody in the car, please don't be too nice.
Maybe he should have been roughed up.
Knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously. Very fine people on both sides.
I can't breathe over there.
Oh, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Get that son of a bitch off the field right now. In the good old days when they protested once, you know, they would not do it again so easily. I'd like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you. Big, disgusting news. Time here.
Are you okay? Get shot!
The enemy of the people.
Step back, get back. Yeah, I got hit. Hold on.
The president tweeted, when the looting starts, the shooting starts.
With MAGA, they love black people. What do you have to lose? We're not allowed to punch back anymore.
He has endorsed violence in public speeches that can lay the groundwork for a culture of violence.
You know, in the old days, bing, bong.
And give rise to epidemics of violence.
A federal prosecutor said today a double murder at a Kentucky grocery store is being investigated as a possible hate crime.
He has incited his followers to violence.
So you know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this? They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. That's true.
And he has threatened violence in the future.
A Florida man suspected of mailing bombs to high-profile Democrats, including the homes of 2 former presidents, has been arrested.
Trump could turn the world wars and the genocides of the 20th century into minor footnotes in the history of human violence.
Biden now leads the president.
He's going to be your president.
Why do you think you're losing, Donald?
Because some people don't love me, maybe.
It's because you've got a loyalty problem.
Loyalty problem.
They're in your campaign.
They're in your campaign.
Your White House.
Your White House.
In Congress.
In Congress.
Even your own family.
Your own family.
They whisper about you.
They whisper about you.
They leak, spin, lie. They tell the media they're smart and you're out of control.
And you're out of control.
That you can't focus.
Can't focus.
That you're mentally and physically weak.
Physically weak.
That you hide in your bunker, scared and shaky. Laugh when you can't walk down a ramp or drink water. All of them.
They're in your campaign.
The ones you know and the ones you don't know.
The ones you don't know.
Whispering about you.
Whispering about you. The ones you don't know.
They expect you to lose.
They expect you to lose.
They want the media to like them and to get one last big payday before you go down.
Go down.
With so many leaks, you probably think it could be anyone.
So many leaks.
Donald,
it could be anyone.
It's everyone.
It's everyone.
Our veterans, we are grateful to our armed services. We are grateful to our military families. We are grateful to our veterans. Without you, we could not enjoy the incredible blessings that we do in this greatest country on earth.
You know, it's hard not to feel misty-eyed nostalgia for Obama during this era of Trump, especially when you compare that speech from the 4th of July 5 years ago to what we heard yesterday on the White House lawn.
American heroes defeated the Nazis, dethroned the fascists, toppled the communists, saved American values, upheld American principles, and chased down the terrorists to the very ends of the earth. We are now in the process of defeating the radical left, the Marxists, the anarchists, the agitators, the looters, and people who, in many instances, have absolutely no clue what they are doing.
Trump, once again, and unsurprisingly, is amplifying racial divides in America rather than attempting to unify a country that is in crisis from both the coronavirus pandemic and a national reckoning on race centuries in the making. His us versus them rhetoric comes as we've seen emboldened white people pulled their guns out on civilians for simply existing while black. This week in Michigan, a white woman and her husband were charged with felony assault after this viral video showed her pointing a gun at a black mother and her 2 daughters in a Chipotle parking lot. Now, what took place before the argument is not exactly clear. But there's another case that occurred in St. Louis, Missouri, where a couple pointed a pistol and a semi-automatic rifle at Black Lives Matter protesters marching in front of their house this week. Incidents like these have inspired countless memes and the infamous Karen dub on social media, but these cases are part of a disturbing pattern in this country of white people, including some who clearly love their guns as much as they love their privilege, threatening the lives of black people for doing the most basic everyday activities. Against this backdrop, Trump's 4th of July message is not just hateful rhetoric. It's not just campaign strategy either. He is stoking a race war. And from what we are seeing, that race war is armed.
The radical ideology attacking our country advances under the banner of social justice. But in truth, it would demolish both justice and society. It would transform justice into an instrument of division and vengeance. And it would turn our free and inclusive society into a place of repression, domination, and exclusion. They want to silence us, but we will not be silenced. Those who seek to erase our heritage want Americans to forget our pride and our great dignity, so that we can no longer understand ourselves or America's destiny. In toppling the heroes of 1776, they seek to dissolve the bonds of love and loyalty that we feel for our country and that we feel for each other. Their goal is not a better America. Their goal is to end America. We will never allow an angry mob to tear down our statues, erase our history, indoctrinate our children, or trample on our freedoms. We will safeguard our values, traditions, customs, and beliefs. We will teach our children to cherish and adore their country so that they can build its future. Together we will fight for the American dream, and we will defend, protect, and preserve American way of life, which began in 1492 when Columbus discovered America. The violent mayhem we have seen in the streets and cities that are run by liberal Democrats in every case is the predictable result of years of extreme indoctrination and bias in education, journalism, and other cultural institutions. Against every law of society and nature, our children are taught in school to hate their own country and to believe that the men and women who built it were not heroes, but that were villains. The radical view of American history is a web of lies. All perspective is removed. Every virtue is obscured. Every motive is twisted. Every fact is distorted. And every flaw is magnified until the history is purged and the record is disfigured beyond all recognition. American heroes defeated the Nazis, dethroned the fascists, toppled the communists, saved American values, upheld American principles, and chased down the terrorists to the very ends of the earth. We are now in the process of defeating the radical left, the Marxists, the anarchists, the agitators, the looters, and people who, in many instances, have absolutely no clue what they are doing.
Not surprising in the least, Willie. The president's racism has been clear for a very long time, clear to New Yorkers who remember as far back as Central Park 5 and anybody who's paid attention to Donald Trump throughout this administration. The list of his racist views and racist sympathies and racist expressions, the way in which he's courted white nationalists, the way in which he's courted white grievance, the way in which he's courted white supremacy and espoused the values of white supremacy have been a consistent hallmark of his political and public career before politics. So none of that's surprising. And these speeches come in the wake of several days in which the president has put himself, he puts on his Twitter feed, retweets a gentleman shouting white power. The president took that video down, but has not denounced it. They're still living with the fiction that somehow he couldn't hear the man shouting white power in that video. Of course, ridiculous claim. He's been campaigning to preserve the Confederate statues all over the country. So the context for these speeches is the context of, as you point out, of several months of reaction to the George Floyd protests, and the movement for racial justice in the country. And then so these speeches are situated in the part, not only in his larger career, but in terms of where this campaign is going right now. And, Yamiche understands this. She's, framed this up really well. The president is doubling and tripling down on a campaign that reads to every non-white American like a campaign that's situated in driving towards the heart of the movement, the counter movement against the movement for racial justice, but the movement towards the preservation of white supremacy. That's what he's doing here. It's what he did in 2016, but he's doing it now on steroids under the circumstances. And I think the thing to say about it is that unlike in 2016, because of the context, the real context in which this is taking place, the context in the country, the president finds himself in a very stark way catering to a clear minority of Americans. This is not a close run thing. You've got 70% of the country expressing sympathy with Black Lives Matter. You had on the Friday that he was speaking at Mount Rushmore, you had tens of millions of Americans sitting in front of their televisions watching the premiere of Hamilton on Disney Plus, which is of course a reimagining of American history, radical in its conception of it because it plays with a largely, almost entirely non-white cast. That's the America that we live in 2020, the America that's celebrating Hamilton, making it one of the biggest television events in the history of television. And the president's sitting there up on Mount Rushmore on July 3rd, yelling about how America is trying to rip our history away. And it's just self-evidently not true what he's saying. And he's self-evidently on not just the minority side, I'm saying politically the minority side of this, but on the shrinking base and a shrinking number of people in America who are with him on this. It is not a winning strategy, and it's a strategy that I think a lot of people are looking at now and seeing it clearly for what it is in a way that they might not have in previous iterations.
And as we said earlier, we're getting those reports, as we knew they would be coming, of Republicans clutching their pearls as they watch, off the record, of course, clutching their pearls as they watch the president unfurl this strategy once again. Mike Barnicle captured this weekend really well in a new piece for the Daily Beast entitled "An Independence Day Wish for the Disunited States of America." In it, Mike writes this: "I thought about a man standing in the shadow of Mount Rushmore Friday night, seemingly intent on provoking a 21st century civil war. Division is his dream, duplicity is his principal tool as he feasts on resentment while knowingly provoking bitterness within those who may feel left out or left behind in a land where a whole class of citizens is frightened and anxious, thinking economic security, their very future, their children's future, is being stolen by the other, by them. An enemy, the man in the shadow of four of our greatest presidents, is eager, willing, and very ready to exploit and aggravate." Mike goes on, "Right now, in this divided, exhausted, angry, self-doubting, and not so aptly named United States of America, we are in a moment that must not be missed. Now is our time to think and remember not so much who we are, but who we really want to be. And in order to make our mark on this singularly unique moment, we must show up in November to make sure that the man who stood at the foot of Mount Rushmore and in front of the Lincoln Memorial is sent into the shadows of history, humiliated by defeat and the knowledge that Americans want something he cannot deliver: an end to the race war, the class divisions, the constant fear of a virus, a shattered economy, incompetence, corruption, and the premeditated cruelty of a fraud who stole our 4th of July and is trying to steal our country too. Mike Barnacle writing there for the Daily Beast. Mike, I'll let you expand on your piece there, but Joe Biden, if you listen to him over the weekend, offering a different view of the country with the subtext, as you write, of, do you really want to do this for 4 more years? Do you really want this kind of division in the country?
You know, Willie, this is all so depressing. I mean, we began this hour talking about hopefully the reemergence of baseball and other sports to provide people with something to watch, something to relieve themselves of the day-to-day pressures of worrying about the virus, the economy, their families' futures. And here we're talking about back-to-back speeches delivered by the President of the United States Friday night and Saturday that are as dark and as doomed as anything I have ever heard. And you wonder, does he know what this country is all about? This is a big, big country. It's filled with flaws. Our history is filled with flaws, mistakes, and failures. There's no way around it. But the way to go forward is, I don't think, to listen to this man, the portrayal of this country that's in his mind. And Michael Steele, in listening to him Friday night and Saturday night, all I could think of is, at some point in the future, historians will look at this period, they will look at this man, and they will have no other choice but to study the effect of what happened here. How could we have done this to this country, putting this man in charge at this tragic time when there's so much to deal with that he is unable to deal with?